Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on this truly magnificent Monday as we start things off with our good friends from the National Drug Council. And at 1 o'clock, Dr. Curtis Barnett, we got a chance to continue talking to him, give you a little insight into some language, in particular the Spanish influence on our own linguistics. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. And again, a special hello and welcome to Miss Susan. I'll tell you why we're going to tease her even more today, but that's going to come later on. So you're going to have to find out why. Stay tuned. In the studio, the excellent company of Mr. Simon Miller, together with his colleagues from the National Drug Council. And we look at him as a knight, in armor, shining here to be an influential and instructive part of our discussion as we also welcome Miss Louisa McLaughlin together with her sort of debut for her studio, Miss Amber Smith. Simon, I usually say ladies first, not because of any other thing other than the fact that, without the stalwarts women in our society, where would we be? So, Mr. Simon, good afternoon to you, sir.
Pleasant good afternoon, Mr. Ebanks, and I couldn't agree with you more about that statement. The two ladies that are sitting to my right, very much can hold their own. So we look forward to their conversations.
Thank you very much, man. And as Mr. Louisa, the research analyst, I always appreciate, I say this sincerely, your not just the impassioned plea, but the objective analytical approach when you say, this is what the research says, this is the number. But sometimes people present a number very, very dry. It's just a number. But you have not just the analysis, but equally that passion for what the impact is, and go behind the news, go behind the numbers. So welcome to you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us today.
And I'm looking forward to having our public be more informed, but equally appreciative of what it means. Now, as part of the NDC's sort of mandate, it's there to educate, to get us to a perspective where we understand that prevention is, the sort of the cornerstone of the whole curative approach. Miss Amber Smith, welcome to you as prevention educator. Welcome, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And if it is at all possible, at some point, if you guys would be comfortable for two reasons. One, we just don't want to, highlight and show our great appreciation for the panelists that we've assembled, but to perhaps be impactful to our parents and our wider populace that within our communities we have, very not just educated but experienced individuals, not just experienced here but international and regionally. And through that, perhaps it'll encourage our students that as they study, whether it's psychology or whether they look at statistical analysis, whether they would use things that otherwise could translate into business, that they could do it in the social realm and be very impactful. But maybe, if you're comfortable, we'll get to that at some point. Ms. Louisa, from that perspective, the NDC has done a number of studies over the years. I've looked at different educational programs, and on a biannual basis, I think we undertake.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you don't mind, let the best go first, right?
Yes. Well, thank you very much once again. I would like to talk a little bit of the history of our Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey. This year, 2018, marked our 20th anniversary. We have been conducted the survey since 1998. So last year was a very remarkable year, not only because we are gathering data for 20 years, but also we have a record in participation in terms of schools and students. So that was a very great year. The survey is a cross-sectional, anonymous survey that describes prevalence and patterns of alcohol and other drugs among students in the Cayman Islands. This includes also Cayman Brac from year 7 to year 12. There are 5 topics that we focus this year, this cycle, 2018. First was the school environment. We got experience with drugs, violence-related behaviors, mental health and feelings. That was a partnership with Alex Panton Foundation. And also we explored family upbringing. As I mentioned it before, we have a school record in participation. We did 3,270 students participate this year. So, and 15 schools, and we were in 228 classes. I want to take this opportunity to thank the students and the schools that always support us in this initiative. It's very important, our partnership with the schools, that they always open the doors for us when we come in with this survey.
And we certainly would look at the statistics in terms of the number of students and number of schools relative to the population of the students. But the ages that we're looking at, we're covering what ages?
Ages, it will be around 11 to 17 years old.
Yeah. Mr. Miller, from that perspective, when we think of 20 years of data, for some, let's say, well, they can use the Met Office, for instance, may go back 100 years in some cases of historical data. Some companies may, from inception, say, well, we've only been around for the last year, so they've got 12 months of sales. But having 2 decades of data specific to drug use and the behavior, so for a small community, can be very impactful.
Absolutely, and it speaks to the efforts not only of the National Drug Council, but the seriousness of the matter behind the schools in particular, being on board with us year after year. So we have to commend all parties involved, and being armed with that sort of information, Mr. Ebanks, that's powerful. This information has informed not only programs over the years, but pieces of legislation and policies, and it continues to do so on a day-to-day basis.
I think of almost 300 students. I should know the exact number, but that's almost, I would imagine, almost 50% of the students within our school system. We're round about that in that age group. Ms. Louisa?
For high school, I think we gather more than 50%.
Yeah.
I will say maybe because we have the majority of the schools, so I will say 80-90% of the school population.
Well, thanks for clarifying. Because within just the general student population, I mean, how many students do we have in our schools from primary, middle, and high?
Okay.
So almost that. And then we look specifically at the high school aspect. That's almost all of them. And then you're looking at 15 schools in totality, covering public and private schools. So from a parent perspective, from a policymaker perspective, you're looking at significant data representative of almost all of that student population in that grouping. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. With that then, as we look at it, and I say this with the greatest respect, we're looking at how credible and reliable is that information? When people respond to surveys, you walk in on the street and someone asks you a question and you jot it down, they might just try to dismiss you. These surveys are very extensive to an extent. We put significant confidence in the results.
I will say yes. We are pretty comfortable and confident with the results because, well, as you know, all the studies have a margin of error, right? Our margin of error is very low. We have 5% of margin of error. So we have 95% of confidence
interval.
And also we have another mechanism of assessment that is our prevention educators and our prevention specialists, that they are always in contact with the students and they know exactly what is going on. So what is reflected in the study absolutely correlates with what they are seeing at the classrooms.
Yeah, and I appreciate you allowing us to take a few minutes just to set the stage so that people, as they get into it, they start to appreciate that this isn't just information that's collected. Yeah, we have 2 decades, but it's been fairly consistent. If you were to do your trend and plot your graph, you would probably see, well, it's there's no great anomalies from one survey to the next. We're seeing this thing happening.
Yes, exactly.
And Mr. Miller?
Yeah. And the other thing I would like to commend not only the Cayman Islands, I think we should feel proud of ourselves and tap ourselves on the shoulder, is that I think when you look across the region and also to North America and certain parts of Europe, other studies in this nature, we have a very high participation rate, and it remains so consistently from survey to survey. So that speaks volumes, about the research that we're doing here in the Cayman Islands.
All right. I'll share this, and hopefully you'll guide me. And the reason, before we sort of, when we come back from the break, we want to get into what the survey indicates and the results. But a number of students, just generally speaking, over the years, have shared that they're aware that the survey is going to take place. They come in, there is some instruction. The teacher, that class leaves, you guys and your volunteers come in. The survey is handed out. It's done, folded, and they leave. And the students have shared, not a whole lot, but over the years have shared that they felt comfortable doing the survey. They felt comfortable that whatever they responded would be an accurate representation of their perspective, that it would be confidential. And I thought that was helpful, because sometimes you're reluctant to give a survey response because you're not sure who is looking at it, how it's going to be interpreted. Whether you're signing something because of, maybe it's from the government through one of its agencies, maybe it's a private sector entity. In this case, I think there is a general acceptance and confidence that it's going to be treated respectfully, responsibly, but also confidentially. Students' participation translates into a higher interaction.
Yes, absolutely. The kids feel very comfortable. One thing that you mentioned, it is true that about the confidentiality. So that makes them feel comfortable responding these questions. And I think over the years, we see the kids more open to this type of information, and I think it's because of the work that we do in terms of prevention, education, going to schools, campaigns. The kids are more open now to respond these kind of questions without any feeling bad or
they're going to be ostracized and sort of judged, and like it's just a response as they see it. Sometimes the questions, I think, ask them specifically or what they know of. Okay. When we come back from the break, can we get into the survey, some of the results, the responses, perhaps what it means?
Yes, sir.
All right. The Cayman Islands, Student Drug Use Survey, and it's 20 years. So the data from the last year, and how that translates into what we've seen over the last 2 decades. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
All members of the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, you are wanted. We need you to come to the annual business meetings to hear what's happening within your association, so that with your help, we can have a more productive year.
Mark your calendars for these important dates. Grand Cayman, Wednesday, April 10th, 5:30 p.m. at the Georgetown Town Hall. And in Cayman Brac, Thursday, April 11th, 12:15 p.m. at the District Administration Building, upstairs, conference room.
Refreshments will be served at both meetings.
Come early, mix and mingle, and catch up with your fellow association members.
There will also be surprises at the meetings, but you have to be present to take part in the fun.
Remember our very important business meetings. Grand Cayman, Wednesday, April 10th, 5:30 p.m. at the Georgetown Town Hall. And in Cayman Brac, Thursday, April 11th, 12:15 p.m. at the District Administration Building, upstairs, conference room. We look forward to seeing you at the meetings.
Procrastination.
I have like 3 SBAs to do, but I keep procrastinating. Yeah, I keep procrastinating.
Procrastination.
La, 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 la.
It's when you delay or postpone action, put off doing something.
Procrasting. Oh yeah, I heard a lot. I do that all the time.
I keep procrastinating.
Boy, Mr. Jamu, I feel like royalty. No need for all that. We done have Prince Charles coming. Oh yeah, but don't we have royalty on the flex? Oh wait, you mean Anna Shell, a bronze medalist? Wait, hold on. I think she can cook. Of course she can cook. She at East, I know. We also have Rubens coming on to talk about their top student award. Don't procrastinate. Join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman 89.9 FM. The show for all people by young people.
Procrastination. La 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 la. Procrastination. La 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 la.
Youth Flags, Morning Talk.
Procrastinating.
Did you know your home is wasting electricity right now? Appliances or electronic devices can use electricity even when they are not in use or switched off. Also known as energy vampires, things like your cable box and microwave are wasting your valuable money. Don't let these devices keep sucking your power. To save money, simply group these devices together on a power strip and turn off the strip when it's not in use. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page for more tips on keeping your home energy efficient. Be an energy advocate.
Whether you're planning your child's next birthday party or simply looking for a social night out, look no further than Kingpin Bowling at King Sports Center.
With a range of packages and specials for bowling parties, socials, and corporate team building, Kingpin Bowling offers what no one else can. The only bowling alley in Cayman. And it's indoor fun, which means no mosquitoes, AC, and don't forget about their bowling bar. Book your bowling lanes today. Call 946-BOWL. That's 946-2495. Email kingpinbowling@candw.ky. For more information, visit their website, www.kingsportscenter.com.
King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Awake your taste at Daily Grind Cafe, Cayman's longest-running coffee shop. Enjoy our cozy ambiance at Dr. Roy Drive, Georgetown. Or visit us online to view our delectable menu and for limited-time offers at dailygrindcayman.com.
You're invited to a special celebration in honor of Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. Join the celebration, including an investiture ceremony and reception, on Thursday, the 28th of March, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on the Great Lawn at Pedro St. James. There is no public parking around the event site. Complimentary shuttle bus service will run from 5 remote parking lots and will run continuously from 3:30 p.m. to 5:20 p.m. Please note that between 5:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. there will be no public access to Pedro St. James. Following the reception, complimentary shuttle service to all 5 remote locations will resume. Remote parking locations will be at the Savannah Primary School, the Savannah Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Savannah United Church, the Savannah Church of God, and the Savannah Post Office. Don't miss the royal celebration on the lawn at Pedro St. James, Thursday the 28th of March, in honor of the royal visit with Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall.
Real estate agents and developers, as well as dealers in precious metals and stones, have until Wednesday, May 29th to register with the Department of Commerce and Investment. The DCI is the agency with responsibility for ensuring real estate agents and developers, as well as dealers in precious metals and stones, are compliant with international obligations relating to anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism. DCI urges businesses to register as soon as possible to avoid missing the deadline on May 29th. Registration forms are available from www.dci.gov.ky or the DCI counter at the Government Administration Building. For further details, please contact enforcement@dci.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for letting Radio Cayman continue to be that voice that informs and involves our community. Honored to be able to partner with our good friends from the National Drug Council. Joining us now equally is our program manager, Miss Brenda Watson. Thanks so much for coming on board, Miss Brenda. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us.
And if you're rejoining us or just joining us equally, Simon Miller, the prevention specialist, together with his colleagues, Miss Louisa McLaughlin, the research analyst, Miss Amber Smith, the prevention educator. I think, and I say this sincerely, whenever we can have, not just, qualitative or quantitative data over an extended period of time that is analyzed in a very constructive, confidential way, if it helps to inform what we're doing, if it helps to sort of cement what we should be doing, makes it instructive. Sometimes it's quite daunting, not just to prepare it, but when you go through it, she's like, Miss Lewis said, So, but it's important. So, as the numbers person is, no, she's not selling numbers. So that's not what we mean. I can see the police knock on my door and say, boy, you know a lot about this. But anyway, that's another discussion for another time. But numbers can lie. The interpretation numbers can lie. But they always, a 5 is a 5 unless it looks like a 3, right?
Yes.
But your numbers are consistent and they're accurate and they're honest, they're prepared and very, very expertly and respectfully done. So what, from this latest 20th anniversary Cayman's student drug use survey, what does it tell us?
Well, it tells us, first of all, that the drug of choice among students is still alcohol. Alcohol is the number one.
Okay.
Over the years, it has been always the drug of choice.
Can I ask, and if it's not appropriate to answer now, if you don't have it, that's fine. I just thinking alcohol is wide ranging, right? So I don't hopefully get in trouble with the agency that regulates whether you should be advertising that they don't regulate. But anyway, alcohol can be beer, wine, hard stuff, soft stuff, side stuff, whatever. Do we go into it and say, well, is it this, and this?
Yes.
Okay, we do that.
Yes, we specify. We give a meaning because it's not a sip. It's when they have a whole bottle or a drink or something like that. And we said also, take in consideration the alcohol is beer, whiskey, vodka, wine.
Okay.
All those kind of things.
And with that, I don't want to belabor it, but just maybe I think as a parent, in your house you may have red wine. That may be the household's choice, or it may be, I don't know, Scotch brandy, whatever it is in the household. Is that sort of indicative of what the children may be consuming? So when we break it down, is it that the children gravitate towards a particular type of alcoholic beverage, or just do we know that from the data?
Yes, from the data we have what their preference. And is if my memory
but not
I know, for example, for the girls they use a lot of the Smirnoff Ice and those soft drinks.
This sweeter kind of
Smirnoff Ice and
kind of sweeter.
Yes.
Right.
I guess back in the day we used to call it wine coolers.
Right.
Okay.
So see now that is sort of marketing. We'll give you this thing because it has. It's not really. It's fruity.
It's flavored, exactly. That's caught their attention. And for the boys, I might say that I don't recall if there is beer or rum.
Okay.
Some of those things, but it's described in the survey, and it's alarming. No, that alcohol remains the drug of choice.
Yeah. I'll ask you not for a response now, and you can decide whether it's important. In the future questions, do we ask, well, what is the drink of choice in the household? And I wonder, the father's a plumber, the son might be a plumber, or the daughter might be a plumber. We traditionally would see children taking on what their parents did. The parents smoke, do the children smoke? So I wonder if we've seen that as parents, how we're influencing our children's behavior.
Thank you for the question. I think it's very valid. We may say that the results also said that the kids are getting these substances from home. So they are getting beers and wines and all those kind of substances because it's available and it's right there in the fridge.
So keep fruits and vegetables on the counter.
Yes.
Right. No, but again, it just shows you how data can be analyzed and interpreted. So the drug of choice is alcohol. Okay, tell us some more.
Yes. Other substances used are marijuana and electronic cigarettes. We started asking about electronic cigarettes since 2016, and comparing to this year, we see also an increase of use of these substances. So we're trying to also educate the kids about the use of electronic cigarettes and how can impact. We also discovered or found that cigarettes has been decreasing since 2010 when the implementation of the tobacco law. These numbers has been decreasing. However, as I mentioned the behaviors has changed because now the kids are using electronic cigarettes.
I think too, if we look at, I don't want to say global, but just the Western world. But if you focus on Cayman, the increased education, the increased social awareness would probably correlate into more information and then a reduced consumption.
Yes.
I think the state of California is a great example of that, where they raised the age, they've increased the taxes, they've had a lot of education and prevention, and yet the population has. Mr. Miller, what do you think?
And you're absolutely right. There's no one quick fix to anything. It requires, I think, a concentrated effort across the board from policymakers, legislators, preventers that working in the schools. Parents are a big part of it as well, to work collectively towards one goal. So we just can't be over here just doing prevention work and doing a number of sessions in the schools and think that that's going to solve our problems. So you raise a very good point.
All right, so I'm 1 point on a Monday. This week is productive. Anyway, sorry. Miss Luisa?
Yes. We can say about half of the students report using alcohol in their lifetime, 54% to be more precisely. 45% reported use it in the past 12 months prior to the survey. In terms of marijuana and electronic cigarettes present similar trends. For marijuana, we can say that 29% of the students report using in their lifetime, and for electronic cigarettes, 32% reported in their lifetime. As I mentioned, cigarettes, there are not much kids that are using it now. We have 16% of the students that reported use it in their lifetime.
And this has dropped significantly. If I remember, a few years survey, the high was almost 48% or something. It was up fairly high, right, at one point?
At one point, at the beginning of the survey, when they started, yes, the numbers were very high. Yeah. And now, when we talk about past 12 months consumption, we only have 6% of the students that report using it.
But unfortunately, the transition is something else.
They are choosing now electronic cigarettes, and that's where our focus, our efforts are focused now. And
certainly continue, but I think for some parents, maybe look at the marketing. I'm told they call bubblegum flavor or all these things, and the electronic cigarettes have a flavor to them. They're not as, it looks like a dragon, see those cartoons where the dragon's puffing. The guy's walking down the road and then he puffs out. It looks almost as if you can't see him for a few seconds. It disappears in this cloud of smoke. We think it's safe. We think it's okay. I believe it's probably more harmful than anything else.
Yes, absolutely. That's why our efforts are toward that, because it is very difficult. The kids have the perception that it is safe, as you said, that it's just water, that is just the flavor. But those cartridges contain a lot of chemicals, and your lungs are not designed to hold those kind of things, right? Those chemicals.
Is the legislation relative to cigarettes and the age of smoking the same for e-cigarettes, the electronic cigarettes, as it is for cigarettes? Okay.
Actually, or is it there is no current legislation. I know for sure that they are working on that, because they ask us for data to. Yes,
I'm very happy that Mr. Ebanks raised that, because we get a number of calls weekly in regards to that same topic that you just raised here.
And I probably shouldn't have been as subtle as I raised it. But unfortunately, many people, even vendors as well as parents, they think, you have to be this age as you do for a cigarette. No, there is nothing that covers so the child that has it. And they look, I don't want to say, they have a certain appeal to them. Very malicious and deliberate, I say so. People can chastise me for it. The way it's being presented, like the fruity drinks being marketed to certain things. Remember way back when cigarettes were at tennis matches and other games, and they would design a certain way to appeal to, the woman or to the man or what have you. It's the same gimmick, right? To deceive and destroy the health and the wealth of the mind and the body. But anyway, that's just a political statement that shall not go unchecked. Having said that, though, Mr. Miller, when we look at the idea that our surveys, over the last 2 decades specifically, has brought to us a certain level of knowledge, and we're seeing that our children, I believe, for the most part, are being honest. I think back to, I don't want to call it donkey weed, because I'm trying to say it, but remember when the children were starting to report that they would go in the ground and they would pull up stuff and they were doing this. We know what they're doing, at least now. Sometimes we are unaware as parents and as teachers as to what is happening.
Yeah. And I like to look at it like almost like envision that you're holding a balloon in your hand that is not, filled with air, and you constrict one area because you're focusing on that, and then another area pops up. And that's how I like to compare what we're experiencing here in the Cayman Islands. And now I know there's a number of factors that go along with that as well. But when I'm explaining it on a basic level to especially parents, that's how I like to explain it to them.
Yeah, well, there are things that I don't apologize for. Our health and our education. If it's going to make it better, I don't mean to offend, but I won't apologize for always being a champion. One final break, and hopefully we'll have some more information, but this will be a continued dialogue. Respectfully, please join us when we come back.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
It's March Madness on all SUVs at BAM Motor, with SUVs starting as low as $20,500 and savings up to $6,000. Find the SUV that fits your budget and island living style. Choose between the roomy 4Runner, the bold Fortuner, the 7-seater Rush, or that motor's #1 selling SUV, the RAV4, all from Toyota. Or choose the compact EcoSport from Ford. Save now on the best SUV deal ever from Vamp Motors, with savings up to $6,000 and SUVs starting at $20,500. Drive home the deal of the year during Vamp Motors March SUV sale. Vamp Motors, Walkers Road.
This Easter weekend, the Cayman Islands will welcome the rest of the Caribbean, and you do not want to miss it. Carifta 2019 takes place at the Truman Bodden Sports Complex from April 20th to 22nd. Watch the region's most talented track and field athletes compete and come cheer on your Cayman athletes. Get ready to raise your flags at the Caribbean's biggest athletic event this Easter weekend. It's Carifta 2019. Tickets start as low as $10. On sale now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. See you at the games.
Carifta 2019. It's all about unity.
Get your tickets now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. Brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, CUC, Salt Technology Group, the Cayman Islands Athletic Association, DART, Miracle Broker, Maples Group, Pinnacle Media, World Gym, and Radio Cayman.
Hi, I'm Dawn McLean Brady, President of the Cayman Islands Small Business Association, better known as CISPA. Small businesses drive Cayman's economy. As small business owners, we depend on government to create an environment where we, as entrepreneurs, can do what we do best, and that's to provide products and services that are valuable to our customers and, in turn, employ others. The cruise piers and cargo ports provide these opportunities. Encourage our government to build a port and let the Caymanian entrepreneurial spirit shine. Support the port, support our tourism.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. And I recognize for some of us, this information sometimes is challenging. Not because we can't understand it, not because we don't have an interest, but when we look at it, we see the impact on our health, we see our own health, on the health of men that we're in sort of connect with as it is. But in the studio, from the National Drug Council, Ms. Louisa McLaughlin, Ms. Amber Smith, Mr. Simon Miller, and Ms. Brenda Watson. Thanks very much for the work you do. It's probably tireless, and you might feel like it's thankless, but 20 years of data and consistent, very honest, very concerted effort. Ms. Louisa, at least the information is there. What we choose to do with it, well, that's on us. as you were sharing, any more of sort of little bits that you want to give us so that we get a perspective of where this data, and of course, Ms. Smith, anytime you wish, feel free to jump right in now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
She says, easy baby steps.
I would like to share also how the kids are exposed to these substances, especially in the community. We found that 40% of the students see drugs being used in their communities, neighborhoods, or districts, and 25% of the students know where they can get drugs in their community, neighborhoods, and districts. So I think it's a very significant statistic because it shows that the kids are exposed to these substances in their neighborhoods, and it's something that we need also to take a look and see the communities more safer for our children. We also collect other information in terms of mental health and feelings. We talk about bullying, and we found that more than half of the students report being bullied, 54%, and 21% of the students report bullying others.
54 is, and 24% is doing it.
Yes. In terms of gender, we found that girls have been more bullied than boys, right? We also ask about suicide. This is for the students from year 9 to 12, and we found that 34%, or 646 students in years 9 to 12, report that they have seriously considered suicide at some point in their lives.
Wow.
It's a quite significant number.
It's alarming.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's alarming. We also found that, once again, girls tend to have the following behaviors: actually attempt suicide, engage in self-harming behaviors like cutting, burning, etc. Also, the girls report more physical abuse, and more sexually abused.
The girls report.
The girls.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that they are. It could be, but they report it because boys may decide.
Yeah.
Or okay.
For example, for physical abuse, we found that 197 girls were physically abused compared with boys 108. And for sexually abused, 152 girls were abused compared to 30 boys. So, yeah, complicated. But we also have encouraging findings. For example, we don't have the following substances doesn't have a very hard impact in the Cayman Islands, as the crack cocaine, cocaine powder, ecstasy, LSD, tranquilizers, and painkillers in the student community, right? Comparing to 2016, we see a decrease in the use of those substances, so we think is good.
Do we think that's because they choose not to report, or is it because they're, again, being honest and they're saying, no, we're not? It's a more...
Yeah, I think it's also... I cannot make a statement said it's because of.
Okay. Yeah.
But I said these kids are using it maybe lack of resources in terms monetary, because those substances are more expensive. Could be, right?
Yeah. Hopefully it means that it's not available, but all right.
Yeah. We also ask the students who they feel most comfortable talking about alcohol, cigarettes, and other drugs, and they choose parents. So we found that parents are an important role in the lives of the children. Even though they are teenagers and they don't listen, they are paying attention as you as a parent, as an example, as a role model. So, and they are telling us that they are seeing their parents. They feel comfortable talking to the children, to the parents about these topics.
And I guess that comes to the point where I was trying to make earlier. If you do these things in your household, how does that, don't do as I do as I say? Well, what are we as parents? What are we modeling?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So
at this point, I would like to pass
Miss Amber.
To Miss Amber, because after we gather this information, right? What we do at the NDC.
Okay, so we have a youth group. It's called Youth to Youth, and it happens Mondays after school at Clifton Hunter. And we are actually partnered with the YMCA in their extended after school program. So Mondays at Clifton Hunter from 3 to 5, and Wednesdays at John Gray from 3 to 5. And Youth to Youth is actually a teen-led adult guided leadership program. And the purpose is to show kids that it is possible to have fun without being under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and all that kind of stuff.
Example.
Yes.
So that youth N is available to all the students at those respective schools.
Correct.
All right.
And on a Tuesdays at Lehman Scott.
In the BRAC. All right. I think it's been effective. I've seen, over the years, the students who participated, and it's given them the information that they have been able to use in their own lives, post high school, whether it's university, whether it's in working, as to, whether they decide to employ what they know, at least they know, and they should. From that, though, and hopefully we will be able to continue with this discussion, because this information is not just beneficial, to those closest to it, whether it's the parent, whether it's the policy maker, but to the wider community as to what it means. And in the closer moments, any sort of other points you want to share with us? I do recognize there's a lot to digest, a lot of sobering facts, no pun intended there.
I would hope that the listening audience, over the past few minutes that we've been sharing, realizes that there's an extremely amount of work that goes into the efforts that we do in the schools and in our communities. We work very closely with certain school administrators, and they're key to the success of, making sure that our kids have the right message. But, we still are trying to encourage parents to come forward, reach out to us. We'd like to work much closer with you. So, because I think that it came up several times with students. We need to liaise with you. We need to work with you. And there are programs that we can offer you to give you the sort of tools and the skills so you can feel more comfortable having these discussions, because these discussions need to continue at home, in the drive home, in the car, over the weekends. So we're here for you. We have Appearances Preventers program, so reach out to us, 949-9000, and let us come out and try to work together.
Well, I'm hoping that's what we will do. It may mean that, all sorts of good things could come. A child could be out one evening with friends and be the one that decides, okay, we're going to party this evening, but one of us needs to be the one that takes everybody home safely.
Yeah.
And everybody gets home safely, as opposed to, something more tragic happening. It starts at home. As you said, Miss Louisa, children actually want and trust their parents for this information. Who say teenagers didn't listen? All right. Any other thoughts from you, Miss Louisa?
Well, if the public need any further information, or they want to know more about the report, they can go to our website, www.ndc.ky, or send us an email with a request. Everything is public in our website. Get the information that you need, and we are here to support everybody.
Well, thank you very much. And Nicole and Miss Smith, you'll come back again?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll even get Miss Watson from time to time.
That's fine.
Oh, she said, yeah, right. Well, thanks very much. And to the public, I do recognize that this is a lot. It is, as much as I try to sort of make it somewhat light, it is serious, significant information, but it's also accurate. It is what our children have reported. And even if it was wrong, it is what they have shared. Mm-hmm. So think about that. So was they consciously and deliberately, all 3,300 students got together and they decided, let's pull a fast one. Well, they had been doing it for a long time because it's been consistent for the last 2 decades. What are we going to do with it, and how are we going to change it? Well, I appreciate it very much, and I hope that we have a chance to have this information shared continually. You do a lot of good work. Let's make sure that as a public and as parents specifically we understand. All right, let's pause and take a break, and when we come back, Dr. Curtis Barnett will join us. We'll get a chance to continue that dialogue that we had with him recently, and we see how Spanish has influenced our language. Ay, mamacita. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Country classics.
Well, I was born to coal miner's daughter. On the road again. They're gonna put me in the movies.
Papa Top again.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso. Because you're mine, I walk the line. Well, I love country classics. Young love, first love. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
If you enjoy classic country music, come hang out with Radio Cayman this Saturday, 3:30 to 6 p.m.
In the Mississippi cotton picking Delta town.
This Saturday afternoon, following American Country Countdown, 3:30 to 6 on Radio Cayman.
Just walk on by. Wait on the corner.
Country classics.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Training, Development and Safety Officer for the Public Works Department, Levi Allen, has been named 2018 Employee of the Year during the 6th Employee of the Year ceremony at the Harkwell Theatre. Mr. Allen was the sole candidate to have been nominated this year under the theme of talent development. This category was selected due to his leadership of PWD's Construction Trades Apprenticeship Program, one of the main projects which led to his nomination for the Deputy Governor's Award. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. U.S. President Donald Trump says his enemies who did evil and treacherous things will be under scrutiny after he was absolved of colluding with Russia. Speaking in the Oval Office, he said no other president should have to be investigated over a false narrative. He spoke a day after the Attorney General released a summary of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's completed report, which clears Mr. Trump of conspiring with Russia to steal the U.S. 2016 election. Theresa May says she does not have enough support to win a vote on her EU withdrawal deal as things stand. She said she would continue trying to get MPs to back it before putting it to the Commons for a third time this week. She told MPs the votes could lead to an outcome that is unnegotiable with the EU. And Scott Walker, one of the most enigmatic and influential figures in rock history, has died at the age of 76. The U.S. star found fame as a teen idol in the Walker brothers, scoring hits with The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore and Make It Easy on Yourself. Walker's death was confirmed by his current record label, 4AD. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Cayman, let's recycle together. It's time for our annual Yellow to Green recycling program. Please collect and drop off old dry directories today. Yellow to Green recycling bins are now located at multiple convenient locations. Foster's IGA locations, Hurley's Supermarket, Yellow, and participating primary schools. Thank you for supporting the Yellow to Green recycling program, turning old directories into reusable materials. Community program is happening now until March 31st. For more information, please visit findyellow.com.
Miami is so much more than just a shopping destination, offering a variety of vacation experiences. And regular Miami airfares are now from just $182 CI round trip, including taxes, with Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you so much for joining us. And it is a pleasure now to not only welcome once again to our studio Dr. Curtis Barnett, but to have this chance for us to continue discussing. Last time he was here, and hopefully he'll come more often and we get a chance to talk about more things. Chance to talk about the impacts of Spanish and or Caymanian English and even on the wider society. So, Dr. Barnett, good afternoon to you, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Mr. S. Dwayne Ebanks.
SDE, yes, sir, that's what I say. But, you know, the notion that Cayman And I would love to believe that everybody has an incredible pride in their country of birth and their history and their ancestry. And when they go somewhere and they adopt it as home, that equally, them, their children, over generations develop an equal love and pride, and they champion the good things of that country, that they equally contribute significantly to making that country even better, so that, we wave the flag at the football match, or we stand in unison at the national anthem, because it is through that the country gets stronger, right? But when we look at Cayman and we think, wow, what a remarkable place. What a place that has both influenced other places, but has been influenced, and Spanish, at least in some quarters, one word and the other is almost one and the same. So what do you think?
That's true. Last time we talked about a number of animals and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And we spoke about iguanas, for example.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about, apart from that, remember far tortuga?
Far tortuga?
Right? Sorry. Las tortugas, right?
Yes, sir.
To use Cristobal's term.
Yeah.
Cristobal, meaning Cristobal Colon.
Yeah.
Cristobal Colon, Christopher Columbus. And we also, I don't think we spoke about Far Tortuga, yes,
Mm-hmm.
the novel
Mm-hmm.
by Peter Matheson. And I don't think we actually mentioned the next one, which is the name of an animal also, that coming from our list before,
right.
that we spoke of before. This one is lagarto.
Lagarto.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
A lagarto is a lizard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if we look back at one of the old maps of Cayman, it's called the Turin. Turin is from a city in Italy. Torino, I believe it was. The Turin map of 1523, that's what these little islands were called. The Los Lagartos.
Yeah.
Los Lagartos.
Do you think, as some have shared, that there may have been big iguanas, there may have been crocodiles then, or were they actual lizards? What do you think? Because when we look at it from those old maps, like you said, lagarto, could it have been crocodiles?
Right. Now, this lagartos, I don't believe it was referring to the little animals we have around here called lizards,
right.
Native Caymanian lizards, right? However, there's a possibility that it might have referred to slightly larger lizards like the iguanas,
Mm-hmm.
but I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it. And recent scholarship, I think, has tended to suggest and to conclude that it was probably the larger animals that they were referring to, crocodiles.
Yeah.
Los lagartos, right? The large lizards.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask is that I keep heavily influenced by Ray's continuing research, but equally, that's Ray Banker. He is as handsome as he is helpful. Some would say, well, it's not a good thing. But when you think about that African proverb, not until the lion gets a biographer will the hunter always be the hero sort of notion, right?
Yes.
In the Cayman context, we look at certain things, and you've shared with us the last time, we've seen it increasingly, even from the very early days, sort of pre-European sort of movements in these waters. We look at the Tainos, for instance, and some of the words that you've even shared, and we'll revisit those.
Right.
They influence us today, 5, 6, 7, centuries later.
Definitely. We have no evidence, unfortunately, that they ever came close to these islands.
Other than perhaps wording, perhaps little practices.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely were in Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
for sure, and they had their canoes, right? And they moved around the coasts of Cuba, and undoubtedly, maybe some storms blew them off course sometimes, and or otherwise they just came in this direction.
Yeah, something that just looking at it, and I believe as we continue with our, sort of archaeological, research and digs, and we look at our DNA testing, we may start to see increasingly certain things. But think of two things. This is just my, sort of thinking out loud.
Yes.
Think of two things. One, the practice of our seafarers going to the Mosquito Keys.
Right.
They obviously knew of a particular course that they would take in a particular practice.
Yeah.
That didn't just happen overnight. That must have been a practice that was in play, from way back when. So where did that emanate?
Well, I think that in terms of our seafarers, that developed. I wouldn't suggest at all that it came from the Taino, the native people who lived around here. prior to the coming of the Europeans and the Africans.
But what I was thinking is that when you think of that, they must have known that this place had this thing, that this is the route you take to get there. What do they call remember the huts that they would build over the water and they would sleep on?
Yes.
As they were, setting the nets and the like.
Of bohíos.
Yeah, right. So that whole notion, that had to have been a practice that was customary for an established period of time.
Yes, no doubt. And we don't know exactly when the first men from this little locality went south and westward to Central America.
Right.
Such places. But undoubtedly the practice began with them.
Right.
And through trial and error and through that first discovery, so to speak, from here to there, they started to develop the practice then.
I don't think so much, that they ventured out and without knowing. I think that they knew. There was one who did it first, but I say he, because it probably was a he, given the time period. But he knew this thing, so he went. But equally, if you look the other way, from the recorded history, the Cayman Islands was a layover, a way station for the turtle meat, the fresh water, for the rest, was it the keeling when we take the ships?
That developed mostly among the Europeans. We're talking about already in the 16th century, the 1500s, right? And this was a station for those mariners, right? Principal of which was maybe Francis Drake, right? I think he gave it the, shall we say, the definitive name to these islands. And, they would come by here, and it was a type of refueling station for them.
Yeah.
They would come and pick up their turtles. Evidently, a practice that was more common among the English and maybe the Dutch as well, more than the Spanish.
Right. And the whole practice of the careening of the vessels in the North Sound.
The careening of the vessels, yes.
So I'm of the view that, again, it's just a hypothesis, that this geographical sort of location being that way station had to have been a practice that was established. And as the Europeans came, they didn't just happen to stumble upon it, through their movements through the Caribbean as they come further and further in this direction. They learn of it, right? Because look at where we are. We're not tucked in with everybody else. We're sort of off. It's treacherous to come into our waters, right? The navigational maps back then weren't as established. We see from research that Blythe probably had some deliberate misleading. Well, that's for another program, but there's some stuff that's coming out, and I think will come out if we're willing to delve into the history. And I welcome just that whole, as much and as extensive as it is, as you shared. It's just a tip of the iceberg, right?
Right. Well, a person or people who are interested in history might pursue that line more vigorously than I, although, of course, I am interested in history, and that the history simply dovetails with what I am doing here.
Well, I'm excited
which
about
is more
it.
from the linguistic point of view.
Yeah, excited about it, yeah. So we had the animals. Well, take us, and as we speak to Dr. Curtis Brown, we're looking at Spanish and Cayman in English, and you can't see one without the other because the food will come into play as well.
Right. So far, then we've mentioned lagartos. We've had tortugas and lagartos associated with these islands, right? And notice I'm not saying the current name for the islands, but isn't it interesting that the names for these islands have been names of animals?
Animals, yeah. Which would probably indicate that their presence was very much there.
And
how would you?
I'm thinking, that's entirely possible, and some suggest perhaps the shape of the island, especially maybe all three,
perhaps,
especially Grand Cayman. But at least, interestingly enough, they've kept the islands in the category of let's say reptiles. It's in the reptilian.
I don't know. Okay, we'll leave it at for now.
You've had the tortugas and you've had the lagartos, and then later on we'll come to caimán, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Okay. But right now I'm going on to bobo.
That's a new one for me. Bobo?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that spelled?
B-O-B-O.
Just simply bobo.
That's a Spanish word. And it refers to some animals that we have here, and for which, in fact, Cayman is pretty famous right now, from the standpoint of the environment and ornithology and so on. You know the booby birds we have in all around there? That's the Spanish name for it. Bobo.
Okay. Bobo.
El Bobo.
El Bobo. Not like to be confused with El Gato.
Correct. So, and we have the Booby Pond Reserve of Little Cayman, which is very important in this part of the world. And so the etymology of booby is bobo, refers to a slow bird. It's a bird we know as the booby, which indeed had a reputation of being stupid. Boobies were given their name, as the Encyclopedia Britannica points out, because early mariners saw how tame they were. They lacked fear of humans and were easily killed by them. And when it came to capturing their food, however, when it comes to that, boobies are anything but slow. No. Howbeit they are less adept at the defensive skill of guarding and retaining their food. I've seen this myself in Little Cayman. Yeah, I've seen them easily lose their catch to frigate birds who live pretty much alongside of them in that reserve. And so the frigate bird, of course, is what we call the man of war, right? And that, no doubt, comes from the Spanish fregata.
Okay.
A frigate.
Frigate,
Yeah. And although perhaps the English got it from the French, which is fregate. Same thing, essentially. Fregate. And then the Italian was similar to Spanish, fregata. Okay? So that was the man of war. We move on then from the bobo to mention the fact that that word is still used in Cayman. The Spanish words. Yeah. And you might associate words like tonto, loco, idiota, estúpido, all those silly, foolish, negative words with that name. And in fact, it does carry such connotations.
Yeah. Well, just to interject, when you look at the, we'll see the people, I'm sure you're familiar with it, that's a booby. Right? Yeah. And that's not a compliment. Again, seen along those lines as you mentioned just then.
It is akin to what we used to call some people foo-foo.
Foo-foo. That's a booby for you.
Or weird, yeah. Okay, so we have that word. In Cayman, we tend to emphasize the last syllable, bobo, right? But if I say the word bobo without explaining what I mean, what do you think I might mean?
But yet it's a term of endearment, right? You're bobo.
It could very well be a term of endearment. Yeah, indeed it could be. I think it's often used that way in Cayman. And it's often used to refer to an actual brother, right? Yeah. So it takes on the negative, a tinge of that negative Spanish meaning, but it is also alternatively an appellation of affection or fondness, used in reference to a brother or as an expression of endearment, with speaking to or about a male person who is not necessarily a blood relation either. Not necessarily. The term bobo or bobo, as we say in Cayman, is also an ironic hint at the opposite. Like when the term was used in the capture of 2 robbers in Grand Cayman in the year 2011. You remember that? and the newspaper came out with, "Heroes nab 2 robbers." All right? And one of the captors told one of the robbers, who was pointing a gun at his face and demanding his money, he said, "Not today, Bobo." You remember? Do you remember that?
Again, contextual, right? It's not today, Bobo.
Right. All right, so that brings us to the word Cayman. In Spanish, Caimán.
Caimán. And that would be spelled, what is it, C-A-I?
C-A-I.
M-A-N. Okay.
Right, Caimán, with the accent mark on the last A there, the last syllable. One of the first things to note with respect to the way we Caymanians speak is the manner in which we say this very word, Cayman. Do you notice? As I indicated in my book, Toes in the Sand, which was published in 1995, when one hears the name Cayman mentioned on radio, television programs, or in the business section of town, for example, it is often mispronounced. It is often said, Cayman. Have you noticed that? So I'm not going to say it again because I don't want people to say that. Some people from overseas claim to perceive that we native-born Caymanians and other residents pronounce the name in various and sundry ways other than the customary correct way that we actually say it. That is Cayman. They seem to hear some other things sometimes, like came on, or Cayman, or something like that. In the first syllable, we pronounce the a long, or the a. That is, like when we say the alphabet a, and then the first syllable rhymes with say, and we render the a short in the second syllable, man. Right? You say man. How do you say it?
Man.
Right? And you say Cayman.
Cayman. Is that how you say it as well? Right?
I say Cayman.
Yeah, very much so.
All right.
Yeah.
Now that tends to be perhaps a little bit more, shall I say, closed and British than the American
yeah.
You say it.
Right.
Okay. But it's more or less similar to the way we say ma.
Yeah.
Or as in father, right? Ma. Native Caymanians will always correctly stress the last syllable man when we say the name Cayman. Notice I say correctly. So do other people who hail from our geographical vicinity, such as Jamaicans, as well as other expatriate residents who have settled in the Cayman Islands and have learned the right way to say the name of their host country. Now listen to our governor, who just recently came to Cayman. He has made a good effort at saying Cayman, and almost gone overboard. Because I hear him emphasizing that last syllable also when he says Cayman Brac, or when he says the Cayman Islands. How do you say Cayman Islands?
The Cayman Islands? The Cayman Islands?
How do you say the second largest island then in the group?
The Brac, yeah.
But put the two words together.
Cayman Brac.
We say Cayman Brac. Somehow we have modified our pronunciation of the word when we say it by itself, which is Cayman. And when we couple it then with phrases like Cayman Brac or Little Cayman or the Cayman Islands, we tend to minimize that strong accentuation on the last syllable. And that is the correct way. He was tending to, and maybe some other people do as well, emphasize that man, still, that last syllable, when he's coupling it with in a phrase.
So when you take the two words, Cayman Brac, the Brac should be, as a word, should be emphasized. But the
that's
syllable,
right.
Yeah.
So it's Cayman Brac.
Yeah. We emphasize in that we're talking about Cayman Brac.
Right.
And Grand Cayman, but the Cayman Islands, Cayman.
Correct.
As one. Okay. Now, see, that is,
and that conforms to the Spanish.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. But that speaks to how we see the country as a people and making that distinction. But again, understanding this from the linguistic perspective, maybe give us a chance if we, as you shared, understand the historical context as well. So a lesson.
So notice I said that. So native Caymanians will always correctly stress the last syllable. However, some of us now are beginning to imitate those expatriates and those foreigners and beginning to say other things, which I'm not going to say because I don't want them to say it.
No.
I want them to say Cayman.
Cayman. But it's a simple word. I mean, it's almost as if you were writing the letter K and M-A-N, right? Cayman.
Correct.
It's easy.
It is.
Yeah, Cayman. As Ms. Susan says, it's only two syllables, right?
Right. And two syllables have two different possibilities of ways of saying them, right?
But it's only one is correct.
Yes. But sometimes there can be variations, and that's allowed, but not in this word.
Not in this word.
No, we don't.
No, it's not allowed. It's only one way.
And now the word evidently comes from the Caribs, and their word for it was Akayuman.
Sit out.
Akayuman.
Akayuman. Akayuman.
And then the Portuguese heard it. And they started talking about Caimão. M-A-O. Caimão. And then the Spaniards heard the Portuguese, and maybe some Caribs at the same time, I don't know. And they started saying Caimán, the Spaniards. And the British, the English that is, came along, and they started saying Cayman, imitating the other Europeans. And who had imitated the Akayuman of the Caribs.
Have you seen any written record of the initial spellings anywhere of, we see Cayman, C-A-I-M-A-N, often. Have you seen any of the other spellings, especially the Akayuman? Have you seen it anywhere in any of the historical records?
Only in the historical and records and the records of etymologists, people who delve into this and study it and so on. But that was, pretty soon lost, the original word of the natives here in this part of the world. pretty soon lost. But as I say, it was picked up by the Europeans then, and they just used their term, their translation or transliteration of it, which was Caimão, or for the Portuguese, and later on the Brazilians, and then Caimán.
Have you seen what the Dutch has done to it? Their initial.
I'm not exactly sure. I know the Germans use a K.
Yeah.
Kai, and they tend to emphasize the first syllable also. Caimán.
Right. Yeah.
Caimán. But they don't know yet until they hear natives and come and live here for a little while.
Yep.
Right. So that was more or less the how it transpired, the history of how we come to say Cayman, and we say it correctly, because we got it from the English, English speakers, right? Got it from the Spaniards originally, and it just follows what they do, and that's Cayman.
Yeah. And I think too, with great respect, I think of perhaps some of the people who work in the financial services specifically. We may, because we're trying to ensure that when we speak to our clients, that they understand us, we may feel that we need to speak, as they do, and fearful, again, maybe speaks to the psyche of our people, not to appear to be, insulting or disrespectful. We don't make the correction, we in fact conform. I don't, it's Cayman.
Right.
So how do we get then for people to say, listen, welcome to the Cayman Islands, we're going to Cayman Brac.
Yes.
We say what we think is correct. I mean, if
people learn other languages, and that's not a big chunk of our language to learn.
Exactly.
And people who hear it for the first time, their ears perk up a little bit, perhaps, and they soon learn.
But
however, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The same process goes on in when you're trying to learn another language, and then you go to another country. I remember when I went to Mexico. That was the first Spanish-speaking country that I ever went to.
And mine was Miami, but
yeah, mine later on too. But there's a certain amount of psychological adjustment.
Yes,
and on the part of the speaker as well, you adjust a bit because you want to. That's a natural process. You want to be understood. Yeah, but there's some things that we don't need to fear. That if we keep them,
accurate,
genuine, shall we say?
Genuine, I like that. Yeah. Okay.
Right. We could go on and talk about the history of that word. I mean, as applied to these islands. Then, if you look in the history books, you'll find forms like Caimanes, N-E-S, Camana, Camanas, Cayman, Caymanas, Caymanos. Even in the English documents coming out of Jamaica, 150, 200 years ago, Caymanos, and others, and sometimes you hear some foreigners, but even some Caymanians talk about the Caymans. I'm smiling at you, but I'm not laughing from a historical standpoint, and from an etymological standpoint. Our older, I can think of an aunt that I had. If she were living now, she'd probably be 125 years old, let's say. But I remember her saying that, the Caymans. She's talking, just as we're talking, and she mentions the name of these islands, and she's talking about the Caymans. And she's a native Caymanian.
Yeah.
Was.
Well, yeah.
And so it was not altogether unusual to hear Caymanians say that as well. But those are just some of the forms that have been used down through history.
All right. Well, when we come back from the break, let's continue looking at it. Let's look at our words. Let's look at some things. I know there's one in particular that has caused much consternation in some of the circles in which I walk. We'll get to that word. It begins with a B. We'll see where that takes us.
Right.
We'll get there at some point.
We'll get there.
All right. Dr. Curtis Barnett is our esteemed guest today. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Save time, don't stand in line. You can apply for or renew your trade and business license online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just visit dci.gov.ky and click on the Trade and Business Online application link. Now, you don't need to stand in line, take time out of your busy schedule or try to find parking. You can apply for your trade and business license online. Visit dci.gov.ky today and save time for running your business.
a caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
This Easter weekend, the Cayman Islands will welcome the rest of the Caribbean, and you do not want to miss it. Carifta 2019 takes place at the Truman Bodden Sports Complex from April 20th to 22nd. Watch the region's most talented track and field athletes compete and come cheer on your Cayman athletes. Get ready to raise your flags at the Caribbean's biggest athletic event this Easter weekend. It's Carifta 2019. Tickets start as low as $10. On sale now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. See you at the games.
Carifta 2019. It's all about unity and together.
Get your tickets now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. Brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, CUC, Salt Technology Group, the Cayman Islands Athletic Association, DART, Miracle Broker, Maples Group, Pinnacle Media, World Gym, and Radio Cayman.
You're invited to a special celebration in honor of Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. Join the celebration, including an investiture ceremony and reception, on Thursday, the 28th of March, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on the Great Lawn at Pedro St. James. There is no public parking around the event site. Complimentary shuttle bus service will run from 5 remote parking lots and will run continuously from 3:30 p.m. to 5:20 p.m. Please note that between 5:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. there will be no public access to Pedro St. James. Following the reception, complimentary shuttle service to all 5 remote locations will resume. Remote parking locations will be at the Savannah Primary School, the Savannah Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Savannah United Church, the Savannah Church of God, and the Savannah Post Office. Don't miss the royal celebration on the lawn at Pedro St. James, Thursday, the 28th of March, in honor of the royal visit with Their Royal Highnesses, the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall.
Awake your taste at Daily Grind Cafe, Cayman's longest running coffee shop. Enjoy our cozy ambiance at Dr. Roy Drive, Georgetown. Or visit us online to view our delectable menu and for limited time offers at dailygrindcayman.com.
Hello, I'm Joseph Woods, the Acting Port Director. Our port facility is the hub of the Cayman Islands commerce and economic activity, handling $658 million in imported goods annually. From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading, and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, Dr. Curtis Barnett joins us. And I think, Dr. Barnett, as we look at our country and we look at its impact and perhaps increasingly the interest that we have of our history, of our language, of our culture, of the notion that there's so much that we don't know, so much that we have believed. And when we research and come to find out, well, it's not quite that way. And then there are simple things that are so significant that they shouldn't be simple, but we seem to dismiss it, be a bit dismissive. So you were sharing with us before the break, so please.
So perhaps when that process takes place, we tend to lose some things and forget. And,
lost in translation,
right.
No?
There are 3 words that comprise the complete name of these islands.
3 words?
Yeah, can you tell me? What's the name of these islands?
Well, I thought it was the Cayman Islands, but...
Exactly, the Cayman Islands.
Okay, so that's what it is then?
Right.
Okay, all right. What's the main verbosa?
Listen carefully to the speakers in public including some of our politicians, and you will hear the definite article cut out very often.
So it's very significant to keep the definite article.
Definitely. Would you speak of Russia used to be part of an association of nations, let's say 25 years ago, right? And back to 1917. What was it called? The Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Would you speak of it with leaving out the word the? Would you speak of the great United States to the north without saying the United States of America? Or some other places within that country, even little parts of a city, like not a little part, a big part of New York City, for example, the Bronx.
Yeah. You wouldn't just say the Bronx.
Exactly.
But you say Queens.
Your morning host talks about studying there, and I think it was Hunter College, located up there, and I'm sure he would say the Bronx. Everybody who knows the place talks about the Bronx. How about the second largest island we have here in this island group? It's when you leave out the word Cayman, you say
the Brac.
Exactly, it's the Brac, right? So what I'm trying to show here is that the definite article is part of names in many cases. The Gambia, the United Kingdom, the United States, the Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, right? We don't leave out the. We always say the definite article, just as we speak of the Cayman Islands and expect to pass as being grammatically correct. It is, of course, not just grammatically correct to say the definite article when referring to the Cayman Islands, but it's also historically the right way to say it when we talk about the Cayman Islands. And, of course, in Spanish, it's Las Islas Caimán. Or previously I heard Las Islas Caimanes, but nowadays it's always Las Islas Caimán, Spanish, and as well as in English, the Cayman Islands. Right? However, we're in this internet age. When you look on the internet, often you will see the definite article left out.
Yeah. Is that laziness or just people don't know?
Both.
Okay, you're probably right. I mean, because I was thinking, like, in Spanish, for instance, saying El and La, for instance, is important.
Las Islas Caimán.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in English now, maybe it's such a... All right, maybe take it. So the definite article, we should say the Cayman Islands, not take it out, not leave it out.
You wouldn't talk about when you come to Cayman Islands. No, it's when you come to the Cayman Islands.
But you can say when you come to Cayman.
Oh, in Spanish, yes.
Okay.
Or if you put islas with that, then you have to say las.
Yeah.
Las Islas Caimán.
Okay.
Right. And something else is the use of the word Cayman and Caymanian.
Okay.
Now, we're talking about adjectives and nouns. We have a newspaper now, right, that calls itself The Compass. And then it appends an adjective in front of that, and it says, what does it say?
Well, it killed Ian, so I'm not quite sure what it says anymore.
It used to be the Caymanian compass, right? And personally, I tend to use that as an adjective that I prefer, as the preferred one. However, many people use Cayman as an adjective, such as on that newspaper there. And that was not only people who came from abroad recently that did that. Many Caymanians tended to do that. And I'm talking about literate, educated Caymanians as well. And it has been used for numbers of decades. So way back to the 60s and earlier.
Use the word Cayman as an adjective.
As an adjective. I prefer, though, to use Caymanian.
Yeah, I do as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Which comes from the Spanish caimaneño or caimanero.
Caimanero.
Correct. So that's an important point I wanted to point out as well. Now, talking about the Caribs in the context of their linguistic contributions, we recall that they gave us another important word, and that word happens to be, we are located in the area known as the Caribbean, right? You didn't want to say that word. You didn't want to say Caribbean.
I'm waiting for you.
You were waiting for me to say Caribbean, because that's my preferred way to say it, right?
Yeah.
Which is reminiscent of European, right? However, some people choose to use the pronunciation Caribbean.
Okay. And I'll wait for you, but go ahead. But it's two R's and one B, or one B and two R's?
Well, it's always one R and two B's.
You notice I say the same thing twice, right?
Split up into 4 syllables.
Yeah.
And some people choose to emphasize the second. I choose to emphasize the third. B,
yeah.
Caribbean.
Caribbean,
All right? People who choose to say Caribbean, using that mode of pronunciation, even if they do not have a well-thought-out historical and scientifically cogent reason for doing so, nevertheless they have a point that bears some validity. European explorers who first met and reported on the natives, gave us the noun and the adjective Caribbean. They actually gave an account of people whom they call the Caribes, right? Spanish and Portuguese. The second syllable, the one with the E sound, is the one that is emphasized, and when the word is uttered in these two languages. Even when the emphasis falls on the third syllable, as in the case of the French Caraïbe, it is still the E phoneme that, so to speak, carries the greatest weight of the sound. Therefore, by resorting to such historical-linguistic evidence, those who display a preference for saying Caribbean, even though the vowel sound in the stressed syllable is short, unlike in the source languages, they might begin to argue, although dubiously I think, that such a pronunciation instead of Caribbean is really the correct one. Another Spanish form of the word, which can be an adjective or a noun, depending on how it is used, is caribeño. That's Spanish, right? Whose syllabic stress, like that of Caribbean, as we prefer it, is on the penultimate syllable B. Caribeño, Spanish, caribeño. I think most Caribbean people say Caribbean.
Yeah.
I'll settle it at that.
But yeah, it becomes instructive too, because you see some people, saying it differently. And even now, I believe, even in our national song, there are some who would want to say it differently if you speak to them.
Remind me of that phrase again, please.
Okay.
Caribbean Sea.
Yeah. All right. How else would you sing that? All right.
That's it.
And yet I've had
Caribbean Sea.
Yeah, some who have shared that it was intended to be said otherwise.
That Miss Leela Ross intended it otherwise?
Yeah, I've actually... Well...
I should have asked her granddaughter, who gave me the rights to reproduce it, actually, the musical, and do arrangements and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Miss
Marcia, Miss Marcia Budd.
Yeah.
And, however, I don't think Miss Ross intended that. She intended what she put there, and that's Caribbean.
Well, I think that's... But again, I'm not a trained musician, right? But Blue Caribbean...
But you speak good English.
Well, I read it even better.
Great. I heard somebody encouraging you to write a few days ago.
Yeah, I should get back to that. My mother was a prolific writer. She did great poetry. Sadly, it seemed that most of it is lost. So maybe one day she'll write again. But writing is something that is not just therapeutic, it's essential.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes the things you write, you revisit and you go, not too bad. I don't know what I was on that day, but I should get more of it. So, Caribbean.
All right. So, are you anxious?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This brings us now to that word called batabano.
Okay,
in
Spanish.
In Spanish. Now, in Cayman, it's batabano. How do you say it?
Batabano.
Good.
Yeah. Just so we revisit, someone, thanks for listening, and this is a gifted musician, Miss Leela Rothshire. This is full agreement that she did intend it to be,
Caribbean.
Yeah. Okay. So you say in Spanish and then in English, and how we say it, even though
Batabano. Mm-hmm. It's of course a noun, a name that comes to us from the Spanish language, and quite specifically from Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of several Hispanic words which Kevin Goring lists in his book, Cayman Islands Dictionary. Right? Goring, however, neglects to mention the connection of this and other such words to the Spanish language.
Mm-hmm.
On a good toponymic map of Cuba, if you trace with your finger an imaginary line from Havana in the north, straight down to the south coast of that large island, you will notice a place called Batabano.
Mm-hmm.
Notice that in Spanish it is written with an accent mark at the end, right? Which indicates the strong emphasis placed on the last syllable. So, Batabano. If you proceed all the way down to the very coast itself, you'll come to the spot designated as the Surgidero de Batabano. A surgidero is an anchorage or port. So there it is, the port of Batabano, Barabanu. We render it thus in English, Barabanu, spelled like in Spanish but without the accent mark. The seafaring folk of West Bay, Grand Cayman, who settled and lived in the northwestern area of the island's Great Sound, actually called the Great Sound, or simply the Sound, on early maps of Grand Cayman, appropriated a fitting name that they had learned elsewhere, that is in Cuba, and employed it for the place where it remains yet today. The terminus of a natural nautical road stayed into which they sailed and anchored and sheltered their boats and small schooners.
So they came straight from the Cuba right into that area. I mean, almost a straight shot.
That's right.
Right. Now, the spelling in Spanish,
yes,
would be the B-A-T-A-B-A-N-O with the accent over the last O.
That's right.
But it would be said in English as we say Barbanu.
Right.
As if it was a B-O-T-A.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Barbanu. Okay. And notice we Caymanians kept the same accent, right?
Right.
The same the stress on the last syllable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it not too long ago, though, said by someone on the radio, actually,
mm-hmm.
who was broadcasting, and he said it otherwise. I will not say it that way.
Well, I've said it to a few others, but then, if I may ask of you, and it's important because not just the historical accuracy, but the cultural significance. So I reached out to some of those Oxbridge trained linguistics, professionals and the like, and I'm told that even though the spelling
mm-hmm.
may be different, the pronunciation can be the same. As you just shared, the B-A-T-A-B-A-N-O with accent. In Spanish, it translates to B-O-T-A, Barbanu, saying in English. Right? Now, why don't we, it's like I go back to how we were talking to Bosun's Beach. There was a short time when, thankfully, we didn't last very long. We were saying it incorrectly because somebody somewhere with a little hint and tinge of a skin said it some way, and we thought because of the accent it must be so. But that was quickly short-lived.
Yeah, good.
But yet with this one, we keep saying it wrongly and disrespectfully.
Well, in the case of Bosun Bay,
mm-hmm.
which is correct.
Yeah, no matter how you spell it.
True, but the preferred...
The B-O-S-U-N?
The preferred way is B-O-A-T-S-W-A-I-N.
Right.
Boatswain.
Right, but it said bosun.
Absolutely.
Right. One is
that's the correct way. I mean, if you're from a seafaring country like Cayman,
bosun's mate,
you're going to say bosun and spell it with a B-O-A-T-S also.
Right.
Boatswain.
But the pronunciation is the same.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. An alternative spelling that you find sometime then is B-O-S-U-N.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this word... Barbanu, right? Batabano in Spanish. Cuban history records that the place originally was an indigenous settlement that bore the name Matamano.
Oh, okay.
An alternative and more embellished version of the story says that when the first Spanish explorers came upon the Siboney inhabitants there, that's a strain of the Taínos,
mm-hmm.
the natives called the little settlement Matamano in gratitude to the Spaniards for not killing them. So goes, the fantastic story. The Spanish word mata translates into English as kill. The third syllable matamano, right? The third syllable coming after ta, matamano, is an abbreviated form of mas. Now, M-A-S, mas means butt in Spanish. Did you learn another word meaning butt in Spanish?
Okay.
Well, the regular modern word for butt in Spanish is pero.
Pero.
Pero, one R.
Yeah,
pero.
And not the dog. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you read older Spanish literature, you will often see this word mas.
So you have mastates?
Well, like Italian.
Yeah.
How do you say butt? It's ma.
Ma.
Yeah. Okay, so mas in Old Spanish. And no, at the end of the word matamano, is the equivalent of the English no or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Matamano, the original name of this place, can be translated into English as "but do not kill." One can easily imagine a scene of timid and frightened natives pleading with dreadful-looking and horrendously armed strangers who early in the 16th century suddenly appear in ships larger than any bohio huts or structures the natives had ever before constructed or beheld, either on land or sea. They beg for mercy and their lives to be spared, pleading in their Taino tongue and with desperate gestures what the Spaniards came to understand as "mata mas no."
Okay.
To say that the ill-fated Siboney natives had actually learned a sufficient amount of Castilian and acquired enough rudimentary knowledge of it in order to utter that phrase is to enter into the realm of speculation. They probably hadn't learned much Spanish by then, right? Their intention and pleading are intelligible enough to the Spaniards nonetheless, so that the latter can confidently conclude that they hear the people uttering "Matamano," please do not kill. And so the Spaniards accede to the earnest and pitiful plea of the natives. They call the place Matamano and record it on their charts like that. Over the course of time, Matamano undergoes phonological modification, gradually losing the nasality of the phoneme, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the time the town is officially incorporated in 1688, the phoneme in both the initial and internal positions where it occurs in the word is substituted by sounds represented by the letter B and becomes Batabano.
Huh. Have you seen examples of that?
The town eventually lent its name to the entire large sound there, which is known as a gulf, specifically the Gulf of Batabano, or in Spanish, El Golfo de Batabano. You know, on some maps, El Surgidero de Batabano. So check your old maps and check your new map, and if you're lucky enough, you'll come across Matamano before it was incorporated as Batabano.
Now, from that perspective, as we look at what we see happening in Cayman,
yes,
and sometimes deliberate and malicious, I would offer. Other times, just inadvertent and ill-informed.
Mm-hmm.
We say and do things without being historically accurate or culturally responsible. But with Batabano, we're hearing it increasingly being said.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get people to appreciate that, like the word Cayman, like the word bosun?
You usually hear that word nowadays in a different context.
Yeah.
Right? Besides when you see it written on the road as a place name these days. I mean,
right.
We have that.
But we see that, yeah.
But last year sometime, I believe it was, I was looking on the internet and reading about this festival that we have in Cayman around the time of just preceding Easter, or around that time somewhere. And they called it Batabano. And something was said about turtle tracks. It's meaning turtle tracks.
But that's wrong.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any evidence for that at all.
Yeah, yeah.
So don't believe everything you see on the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I had a lesson from a very distinguished gentleman who shared that was in need of significant correction. So you found it and you've recognized it as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. So Batabano. If anybody else is saying it any other how, then we need to stop. That's what you're telling us.
Batabano is correct.
Batabano is the way to be said.
Yeah.
The spelling is still okay, B-A-T-A.
Same as in Spanish, except with the no accent mark at the end.
Right. But if you were to spell it B-O-T-A, would that be correct? But spell it like how...
Well, no, that would not be correct.
Okay.
I mean, the Caymanian spelling of it is established, and it's based on the original the etymology of it.
But a person unaware, they would see B-A-T-A in itself. Remember the shoe store, Bata?
Yes.
Right. They would say, well, that must be B-A-T-A. What would help them, or why would they know when they say B-A-T-A, right? B-A-N-O, that's how it's spelled in English, no accent. How would that person understand, without it being linguistically trained and understand the etymology of the word, to know that it should be said Batabano?
In learning new words, as well as in learning new languages, one has to hear.
Okay.
That's a big part of it.
So like the word...
We do that all the time when we go to the dictionary and we see how things are written diacritically and so on. Or sometimes we listen online to see how to pronounce a word.
Okay. So the word gnome, G-N-O-M-E, if we didn't know there was a G there, we would probably think about there was no G.
Yeah.
So just like that, some sight words then in a sense?
Right. I mean, you just have to... You learn it by listening.
Learn it by listening.
So in that case...
And it comes
because
back
otherwise you might say it in other ways, which I don't want to say here.
Fair enough. So it comes back to those who know, telling and instructing so that all of us would know. All right. Well, I shall, on your authority, feel empowered to be very corrective.
Absolutely.
All right.
Say it the right way. Never accept it.
What is the right way to say that word? Badabanu?
Badabanu.
Okay. Badabanu.
Because we say the first A in the first syllable there, ba, right? That's Spanish, ba. We say ba. Closing the utterance of it there a little bit and making it more like the way we say bottle. Of course, bottle is written with an O and battle is written with an A, right? We make a distinction there. But somewhere in between those two, we have Badabanu.
Badabanu.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds simple enough, but now that you have shared with us, hopefully we'll all take it on board. Badabanu.
And of course, when it comes to accenting the last syllable, I mean, there are many words that we use in English as well as we get from French and some other languages that...
Okay.
Like raffiné, it's refined, there's the Greek parakalo. You go to Greece, you'll hear parakalo. Please.
Well, Dr. Barnett, when we come back, I know we got a lot more words to share. I'm anxious to, because this is instructive, but I really appreciate your time. Now, we have our news break coming up, some commercials to share with you. Thank you for supporting our wonderful advertisers. And as we wish Miss Susan a happy birthday. Woohoo! Boy, what a day this is going to be. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Miami is so much more than just a shopping destination, offering a variety of vacation experiences. And regular Miami airfares are now from just $182 CI round trip, including taxes, with Cayman Airways. Call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit SeaboardMarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
Humanity.
One night in one atmosphere. Lions Club of Tropical Gardens presents For the Love of Humanity. Featuring
Hey, this is Kevin Downswell. Gonna be blessed.
Come out with your family. Come out with your friends. To the Lions Community Center on Saturday, 13th April. Showtime, 7 p.m.
For the Love of Humanity.
Also featuring Omar Walter, Opal Stewart, Sylvia Wilk, Williams Quartet, Red Bay Gospel Band, Shanda Gallego. Admission, $25 prepaid, $30 at the gate. VIP, $50. For the Love of Humanity. The concert featuring Kevin Downswell. Lions Center, Saturday, 13th April.
I feel like running, skipping,
Tickets available at Funky Tanks and Christian Enlightenment Center. Follow Radio K-Man on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio K-Man.
Radio K-Man.
Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
A 54-year-old man of Georgetown has been arrested and formally charged with burglary in relation to an incident on January 9th where a business on North Church Street was broken into and several items were stolen. The man appeared in court this morning. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, a British Airways flight destined for Dusseldorf in Germany has landed in Edinburgh by mistake after the flight paperwork was submitted incorrectly. The passengers only realized the error when the plane landed and the Welcome to Edinburgh announcement was made. British Airways said it was working with WDL to find out why it filed the wrong flight plan. The Greek Prime Minister has accused Turkey of harassing his helicopter with fighter jets as he travelled to an Independence Day celebration. Alexis Tsipras said his helicopter was forced into low manoeuvres today when Turkish jets entered Greek airspace. The Prime Minister accused Turkey of foolish actions that have no meaning. And AirAsia has apologized after its advertising campaign was labelled harmful in Australia. The advert, containing the phrase "Get off in Thailand," was posted around the city of Brisbane to promote the airline's direct route to Bangkok. Collective Shout, a grassroots campaign movement against the objectification of women, claimed that the advert was promoting sex tourism in Thailand. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman. The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks so much for joining us. And again, thanks to the good company of Dr. Curtis Barnett. And if you're listening and wish to join us, please do so. Phone lines are there, 949-6990 or 949-8037. You know, I think words are important. And I say this, and if you're offended by it, my apologies, but I live by it. The scripture talks about life and death is in the tongue. Words are important. And I think English of all languages is so easy to misconstrue, misrepresent. Words, the word fair. Depending how you say it, are you paying for something? Are you eating something? Are you afraid of something? Is it something that's treating you properly? It's the same word fair, right? Fear.
Slight variation.
Slight variation, but said under the... Anyway, Dr. Barnett?
Right. We were talking about the fact that it's not unusual to come across words in Cayman, and not just Cayman by any means, that... are emphasized on the end syllable, the last syllable. I mean, from French, we get words like exposé, fiancé, right? And that's with accent marks. Without accent marks, we have words like callaloo. And by the way, it's spelled with C-A, first of all, callaloo. And we say call, C-A-L-L, right? Okay, so there's your A becoming similar to the O there.
Yeah. So, it's not callaloo, it's
right,
callaloo.
It's callaloo.
Yeah. And that is grammatically correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Even though it's C-A.
As I said, we say call. C-A-L.
Call.
Right, call.
Right, not call.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's not meant to, I won't try to emphasize
this is especially true in English, where you can have a number of variations on a particular vowel.
What is it that we learned in school? When two vowels go talking, the first one, we'll go walking, the first one does the talking and says his name or something, So if you got A-O, it's the A, if it's two vowels, all right? Okay.
Right. Manatee would be another... Manatee. No accent mark there, but you're emphasizing the last syllable.
Is that because... Okay.
In Spanish, of course, there are many words, all the infinitives, caminar, beber, salir, and so on. They emphasize the last syllable, right? The emphasis is on the last syllable. And, of course, you have other words like the nouns madri, right, or papel, or reloj, salud, your health, right? and so on. And it doesn't have to be a noun. It could be like feliz, which is an adjective, happy. They're emphasized on the last syllable. And you have a list of others, alcalá, alelí in Spanish, así, bambú, caló, calibrí, ojalá, tabú, like in English.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but what I wanted to say here next was that that is pretty common in Cayman, that we stress the ending of words or phrases. And so it's not strange at all that we easily accepted and adopted the word batabano. Batabano from Spanish.
Yeah, phonetically.
Wow. Right. And so the emphasis is on the last. Listeners can hear. Well, let me say this first. One remarkable trait is that that is typical of Caymanian speech, if not unique. It's that the intonation we give to utterances that exceed a single syllable or to multisyllabic words, phrases, and clauses. We have that emphasis on the last. Listeners like Arona Booker Coleman, right? Back in the earlier part of the century, of the 20th century, that is, the previous one, right? Give attention to that fact. In her little book, she wrote a little book called What You Say, right? An Introduction to Colloquial Caymanian. And she picks up on that, and she notices that, quote, the intonation patterns of pitch and stress mark some of the most important distinctions in Caymanian speech. And that is borne out by what we're talking about here. As we mentioned at least a couple of times in our presentation so far, is that Caymanians have a distinct tendency to do that, to accentuate the final syllables of many words, composed of two or more syllables. And let me bring out some words here now, which English people or Americans, Australians and so on, might tend to say otherwise. But a Caymanian is very likely to say things like an airplane or aeroplane, right? Airport, the armpit, backbone, a back house, right? A basket, basketball. You hear me? I have a lot of Bob Wood, right? Some people don't know what that is. Bookcase, bubby, right? Bateau, butterfly, carefree, cowboy, doorstop, dungaree, earache, fishtail, footprint, forklift, grandson, guinea, guava, highway, homemade. You hear the Caymanian coming out here?
Yeah. So we emphasize in that.
We tend to do that when we say the word by itself,
mm-hmm.
or in a group, in which case it might be a phrase, or if it's a complete sentence, would be a sentence, an oration, right? But we tend to do that in our linguistic traits. Did you ever hear this one? Yanta. Over yanta, or yanta. The itemization could go on, but the already extensive list illustrates how extensive and pervasive the practice is among Caymanians to stress ultimate syllables, that is the last syllable, which is a custom that differs from what is usual among the majority of speakers of Caymanians worldwide, of English speakers worldwide. We must not forget, however, that there are similar differences between the way Americans say certain words and the way speakers of British English do. To illustrate the point, we mentioned that Americans stress the end syllables of the following words, whereas British speakers stress the first, like baton, chauffeur, debris, frappe, garage, pastel, salon, vaccine, or vaccine.
Yeah, the British tending to be the first, and as you shared, the Americans with the latter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right, so we have a number of other words, like, carton. We say cartoon.
Cartoon.
In Spanish, it's carton. But we have that, I don't know if you got that from Spanish, but the Spanish emphasized the last syllable there.
Yeah.
Carton. It's a cartoon.
Yeah, cartoon cigarette.
Or a cartoon box, right? Yeah, cardboard box.
Yeah.
right? Okay, that's Caymanian. Not distinguished not only by the stress on the last syllable, but also by the phonetic modification in some cases. Not carton, but cartoon. The resulting pronunciation of the word when many Caymanians say it is, as we've said, cartoon, rhyming with balloon. But of course, that's the correct way. We say balloon, like other English speakers, right? The word thus imitates the Spanish stress on the last syllable. Cartón. The other word we're singling out here now from the above list is llanta. You want to hear me talk about llanta? It's truly a Caymanian utterance. It was the normal, natural, very informal and demotic manner some Caymanians had of saying yonder. Everybody knows this word in its traditional form. I have heard it, I believe, more in the context of reading than in vocal rendering. In a poem recited at Christmas, for example, one might hear a reference to that yonder star. That is a reproduction or performance of something written and conforms more to the traditional and generally universal way of saying yonder in English. But in the public reading of the word in poetry, I have heard the aw sound of the first syllable produced more like an ah rendering, as in the line, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. I've heard Caymanians say that, yonder, whereas I might tend to say, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. This is a refrain in that song by that same name. I have not perceived in the singing of the refrain, however, as contrasted to the reading of it, any such alteration in the standard pronunciation of yonder. By way of illustration of how some Caymanians modified the word, we might listen in to the context of an oral exchange and hear a representative version of the more vernacular morphological form of the word. If we had been privileged to listen to a snippet of a conversation one morning between two neighbours, we might have heard something like this. "And how's Uncle Freddy today?" one of the ladies inquired. "Oh, he's all right. When he left here about 5:30 this morning. He's gone up yanta in the ground." The other lady replied, pointing northward toward the location of the plantation, which was some 2 kilometers distant. The Caymanian community, incidentally, is not the only English-speaking one in which the word yonder was altered. In the book Talk in Tar Heel, How Our Voices Tell the Story of North Carolina, Walt Wolfram and Jeffrey Reeser, this is published in Chapel Hill, their university town there, give some examples of how yonder became yander among them in the mountain region of that American state. The change in Cayman, however, was even more radical because of the stress on the end syllable, as discussed in the next paragraph. Well, I don't know if you want to hear that paragraph, detailing the changes, but in any case, we're talking about yara.
Yeah.
Occasionally, I still hear that.
Yeah.
On Radio Cayman.
Well, hopefully. It's something that it's important. And unfortunately, I think people believe that because if you lose, if you speak with your colloquialisms, then you're indicative of being, uneducated. But if we lose our colloquial references to whether the names of places or the words that we use to refer to things, then we're losing an important part of our history.
Yanta also reminds me of allá. Acuya.
Yeah.
In Spanish. Acuya is not used that often, but allá is used all the time. Yeah. Right? Allá, over there.
All right. Dr. Barnett, we have one final break.
Sure.
And when we come back, we'll continue. And hopefully, as people start to appreciate the wealth of history and the significant cultural depth that we have, get a chance to come back after the break. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Flow, we know that 4 are better than 1. Introducing Flow Quad Play. Packed with the fastest, most reliable broadband, the power and control of Flow Evo TV, Cayman's best mobile experience, and tons of home phone minutes, all in one convenient package from only $199 a month. With 4 plans to choose from, you're sure to find one that fits your needs. It's value, ease, and convenience all on one bill with Cayman's #1 network. Find out why 4 are better than 1 with Flow Quad Play at discoverflow.ky. Terms and conditions apply.
This Easter weekend, the Cayman Islands will welcome the rest of the Caribbean, and you do not want to miss it. Carifta 2019 takes place at the Truman Bodden Sports Complex from April 20th to 22nd. Watch the region's most talented track and field athletes compete and come cheer on your Cayman athletes. Get ready to raise your flags at the Caribbean's biggest athletic event this Easter weekend. It's Carifta 2019. Tickets start as low as $10. On sale now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. See you at the games.
Carifta 2019. It's all about unity.
Get your tickets now at CaymanCarifta2019.ky. Brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, CUC, Salt Technology Group, the Cayman Islands Athletic Association, DART, Miracle Broker, Maples Group, Pinnacle Media, World Gym, and Radio Cayman.
The Department of Environmental Health is committed to picking up your garbage. To avoid delays, please place all of your household garbage in large bags. Do not overfill garbage bags or place loose trash in containers. These risk lengthy stops, which in turn lead to greater delays. Inform your neighbors too. Their poorly packed garbage will delay your pickup as well. Bag it and bin it. We will collect it. Do your part. We will do ours. Brought to you by the Department of Environmental Health.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today in the studio. This magnificent Monday, not only because it's Susan's birthday and all the angels are in unison singing happy birthday to her. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-TALK. Good company of Dr. Curtis Barnett. And you're just focusing specifically to an extent, or exclusively, I wouldn't say, but the impact of the Spanish in or Caymanian English. Mm-hmm. Significant how not only the words and names of places, but how we have adopted and somehow did now become part of our cultural psyche. Now, you were just sharing some of the words, Dr. Barnett. Thanks again for the time. I really appreciate you giving us an insight. It goes fast, huh?
Oh, it certainly goes fast, yeah. Just to finish up about Yanta, it reminds me of, Aya. And indeed, Aya comes from the Latin ilac, which means over there. And that's what Yanta means there, Mm-hmm. They're in the distance. And but they both are emphasized on that last syllable there. It literally means masaya, beyond, over there. Masaya.
In a distance, a good distance away, not right. Next door.
Right. The emphasis is on the last syllable in both cases.
Which speaks to how we talk to, as you said, the words, right? We emphasize last syllable.
Mm-hmm. And that is true not just about words, but of course, as I said before, phrases such as back. You know back? Right. Bunks back. Cayman brack. Cayman brack bluff. We're emphasizing the last syllable. Cayman kai. Bodden town. Right? A dinner plate. A dirt road. And so on. And so on and so on. Many other examples we could give. To conclude our observations on Batabano, we're still there, we note that in the process of settling and becoming established in a locality removed from and different to one's place of origin, a lexical entity might not undergo a great deal of change. It may actually retain much of its original aspect and character. This is more or less what transpired with the word Batabano in Cayman Batabanu. It lost its superscribed mark over the final O when it was brought from Cuba. But it was not fully deprived of its essential linguistic personality and original identification. A frank and sincere observer will readily acknowledge, however, that in its second home, which is Cayman, Batabano's name became phonologically slightly modified, as both the vowels and consonants underwent some discernible change from the original. The phoneme first became aw on the tongues of Caymanians. It took on more of the sound of the first syllable in bottle we talked about before. So we have what we have today. The consonants, finally, in Batabano, as they become more and more susceptible to our native linguistic propensities, came to be less distinct and more slurred than in Spanish. In Spanish, it's simply Batabano. In Caymanian, it's Barbano.
Yeah. But Spanish, then you can see the phonetic almost in English. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But no.
We'll continue next talking a little bit about names of places.
Mm-hmm. Which is...
And to what degree did they have Spanish influence in Cayman?
And also, as you shared too, even some of our names of our people, not just places. And the idea that the more and more we look at the historical influence to this day,
mm-hmm.
From the other time. Now we've got a couple of minutes. You want to tease us with some of those places? Like
halfway up the island, go east, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go east, young man. And you'll come across a place on the southern coast of Grand Cayman, which hosts tourists and others, such as princes.
On Thursday, is it?
Exactly. Can you tell me the name of that place?
All right. Now, interestingly, there's a discussion as to whether we say Pedro or Pedro. All right? The significance?
There is a discussion, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking, give me the complete name of that place then?
Well, is it...
I'm not saying is. You just tell me what it is.
Yeah. Is it, as Susan's whispered to me, Pedro St. James? Or is it something... Pedro St... What is it?
All right, let's talk about that a little bit. The name is Pedro, and the name of the place is Pedro St. James. The word castle is frequently appended, right, to the name. It's often called Pedro Castle, also just Pedro Castle. However, many Caymanians choose to say Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
A 1773 map of the island shows that the name of the area east of Savannah was Pedro. But it's called Pedro, all right? Mm-hmm. Pedro. In fact, it was divided into two sections. To the west was Little Pedro, and further east was Greater Pedro. And both were raised a little bit, and the Greater Pedro, of course, a little bit higher bluff.
Mm-hmm.
Not very high. But in doing my research, I realized also on the southern coast of Jamaica, there's a place called Pedro. And sometimes it's like on the southern coast of St. Elizabeth. Right, that district. What do they call it? Parish. And so I'm wondering, is there some sort of relationship there? Theirs is a bit higher in their coast, it's often that way. But Pedro, yeah, and they say Pedro. All right, there's a certain discrepancy, as you say, there's some discussion as to whether it should be called Pedro or Pedro. In Cayman, many insist on saying Pedro when saying the name, the way the Spanish name begins to sound just like we say Peter. I think maybe that English influence is there working on that Spanish word, Spanish name.
Peter, Pedro.
Right,
mm-hmm.
Right. But it is originally Pedro, and as I say in Jamaica, it is said Pedro. They do say that. And interestingly enough, I have come across other places where the name suffers a change like that. In the States, in California, for example, an article was written a few years ago in the Los Angeles Times, and it showed how there was some change happening there. And she entitles the article, for example, La Bahía de San Pedro became San Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
A woman by the name of Marisa Gerber wrote that in 2013 in Los Angeles Times. I will also note, in honor of the true and complete representation of Caymanian speech, that some Caymanians call the place by its original Spanish name, even though a few others insist it must be called Pedro. Mm. Some continue to say Pedro. This is not because they are Hispanic in origin. The persons whom I have heard say Pedro Castle, pronouncing Pedro in the authentic Spanish way, are traditional Caymanians of non-Hispanic ancestral provenance. Two such persons, in fact, who use the Spanish pronunciation in my presence are descendants of the original builder, Mr. William Eden. They are Edens, and they say it's Pedro. Without my having asked them, even they're talking about Pedro Castle.
When you look at the spaces and things, just look at Cayman's connection with say the Bay Islands and stuff. Was it San Pedro Sula?
Yeah.
In Honduras. So could there be, as the explorers came early and moved on through the islands, Pedro, the corruption and influence of the English versus the dominance of the Spanish?
Well, there is always that at play.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, you have the influence of your even when you're trying to learn a foreign language. Sometimes you don't quite grasp the correct pronunciation, at least not at first, because you have the interference of your mother tongue. You know, and so that could be, if that becomes dominant in the saying of the word, then there's a change going on.
Mhm.
You know, and there's an evolution, so that the A becomes E by the influence of Peter.
Peter, yeah.
Peter, it means Peter. Everybody knows that, right? But Pedro, coming from Petros, the old Greek, meaning a stone. It takes us back to that.
Which is what it is when you look at it, right? I mean,
That's where it comes from.
Okay.
Yeah, but it came down into Spanish as Pedro, and into Cayman as Pedro, into Jamaica as Pedro. And, of course, United States as well. I mean, there are people named that, and there are places named that also, even if the pronunciation changes a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dr. Barnett. So, just a little teaser, but what else would be of influence? I mean, just that one name and play into importance on Thursday with the visit of the Royals. We're seeing it.
Well, I just want to mention one more fact, and that's south and west of Jamaica. You have the Pedro Keys, right? Morant Keys to the east, and the Pedro Keys to the south and the southwest, and they are referred to as Pedro. And you know, the original Spanish name of that was not Pedro Banks. In Spanish, it was called Placer de la Víbora.
Placer?
Yeah, the Viper's Bank. And it was not annexed by the British until 1863. Well, that means then that our Pedro Castle probably did not get the name Pedro from those keys.
No, not at all.
I'm not sure the name Pedro in Jamaica itself. I'm not sure when they first started to use that, you know. And but nevertheless, I think there might be some connection there. And of course, then we have the word castle, right? Pedro Castle. It's also connected to a Spanish word with which we're all familiar. The word for castle is castillo, right? But that, like the English word also, they come evidently from the Greek, the old Greek word Castro. And so the name Castro, it's a personal name, was also a geographical name in places like Galicia in Spain and Portugal and in Italy. Okay? Castro. And originally from Latin, it was castrum, meaning a fortified military camp. That came from Castro. And that's where we get the term castle from, right? The diminutive form castellum is apparently the one that gave us Castillo in Spanish and came down to English as castle.
We've even seen some names Castillo as well, right? Some names. So, Dr. Barnett, as we look at this, I mean, it's only whetting the appetite as to the rich linguistic history and the significant influence Spanish has had, you know, in our own dialect, naming of our places or words and the like. Hopefully we get a chance to continue this discourse. What is our homework assignment between now and when we revisit the subject?
Well, check out the way Caymanians say the names of certain nationalities. And you'll find something unique. You'll find something unique. There's still to be treasures. There's still treasures to be had.
Yeah.
Okay, man.
But I tell you what, it is, I believe, instructive as much as it is, you know, imperative for people to understand who we are. And
well,
you know,
Mr. Loxley always talks about that. Who we are, where we came from, and where we're going.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, I would like to share this. One of our listeners, again, a very astute, involved individual, says enjoying the show very much. And want to extend a special thanks to you, Dr. Barnett, for, you know, because as you can share, a lot of us assembled listening, enjoying your impartation today. What you share should be summarized into a curriculum for our national culture and history orientation, you know, program, not just for all of us, but for, you know, people who are arriving to the island, because it gives us a chance. Even just being able to say certain words, why it's said, and the importance of saying it. You're a scholar and a very, very diligent researcher, so thanks for taking time.
You're certainly welcome.
Put this on. Hopefully we can continue. It's a lot, but it's a lot that is very important. Unfortunately, has been glossed over for too long, and maybe as time passes, like so much, we lose because we're unwilling to be diligent. Any final thoughts for today, sir?
Not really. I encourage people to do the kinds of things that I've done. Be interested in what's around us and do our research, and it makes life more interesting.
Yeah, and I think part of this, I hope he doesn't mind. I owe him a fair bit of paperwork now that I haven't gotten to. But Ray Banker, we started out over a dozen years ago on a discussion on something on a simple word, Barbanu, and that sparked into incredible research. It is not to be disrespectful of anybody else. It's the importance. If your name is George, I shouldn't call you Gene or Mike or Peter, all right? And if you prefer to be called George with a J, but not Jorge, I should call you George.
Right.
I think that's important, right? And if you don't tell me, listen, my name is George, but I spell it with a J, but you don't say Jorge, how am I going to know?
Right.
And I think that's what has happened to us in too many instances. We don't want to be disrespectful, but then in the same token, we don't be instructive. So thank you for being not only very respectful, but very insightful.
Well, as I read some years ago in relation to teaching our children, if we don't tell the story, they won't know.
Yep. We have a wonderful story. It's one that should be shared. It doesn't mean that we have to ignore the stories of others. It doesn't mean that ours can't stand alone or in concert, but it means that it has to be shared. And I am as guilty, probably more so than others, because I know and I don't impart. Sometimes I don't inquire, so therefore I can't even share. But if we don't, then when it's lost, having that bread on the countertop that your mama made, nobody ate because they were leaving it for somebody else, then it becomes John Joe. Nobody enjoys it after that,
Right.
So it's not unlike that. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnett.
You're welcome.
All right.
Dwayne.
And to Susan.
I'll see you again.
Yes, sir. I won't endeavor to try to sing happy birthday to you, but what I will do, right, is with a heartfelt...
I'll just say it in Spanish. Cumpleaños feliz.
Cumpleaños feliz. I wouldn't say feliz cumpleaños, but you see, he knows better. And for all of you, it's Susan's birthday, so what you do to save for the calories and the fat grams, you go enjoy the cake and send her a picture and say, see what you could have had, but we had it for you instead. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
After all that talk, sit back, relax. Easy listening on the way. You're listening to Susan on the PM Show, Radio K-Man.
Another tequila sunrise, staring slowly across the sky. Said goodbye. He was just a hired hand, working on the dreams he planned to try. The days go by. Every night